All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to join this meeting. We have a lot of new coaches this year, and I was getting a lot of the same question, which indicated to me that a lot of people had the same questions. So I thought it'd be easier, instead of trying to email everyone the same answers, kind of get everyone together, collect those questions that I was getting, and share that information out with everybody. I also wanted to make sure that the veteran coaches that are on the call had a chance to talk to the newer coaches that might be in their area, because a lot of the questions that I'm getting are how to schedule competitions, which we'll get to later on down the agenda. So that's kind of how we got to where we are right now. Again, this list kind of came from all the questions that I was getting, and this isn't the only things these aren't the only things that we can talk about. If other things come up, if you have other questions, once we kind of run through all of this, we'll save questions for the end. I'll go through this as quickly as I can and save as much time as we can for questions at the end, because I feel like that's where most of the information comes from. So I am going to start and stop sharing my screen so that I can show you guys things and I can see what I'm doing. But I wanted to start off with letting you guys know what else I do besides oversee competitive cheer. So I actually have 3 other sports that I oversee. Right now, during the fall season, I'm in charge of swimming and diving. I'm the administrator for swimming and diving. So right now we are close to getting ready for districts. So by the time cheer starts, we are into districts for swimming and diving, and then obviously regionals and states. So as one season is into the postseason and we're getting into the state series events for that, another season is starting. So after this, you might not hear from me a lot until after the season starts in October, because we're into the state championship series for swimming and diving. Obviously, competitive cheer is my winter sport. And then in January, we start softball. So softball is my spring sport. And I've also been given another spring sport this year, which is beach volleyball. Does anyone know if I can turn that doorbell off? Because that is tremendously distracting to me right now. Is there a setting or something?
Kelly, there is, but I think you have to do it in the Zoom, on the Zoom website.
Okay. All right. I will just keep on keeping on. Okay. So yeah, I have 2 spring sports. Beach volleyball is new this year, so that's going to be fun. But those start to gear up once we are into our regional and state series for competitive cheer. So if you don't hear from me a lot, and a lot of you haven't heard, nobody has heard from me much at the beginning of the school year, it's because I'm working on swimming and diving and trying to get them up and running during their regular season. So those are the other sports that I'm assigned to. We have other meetings that we do in our office with other officials groups. I used to help out with the SMAC committee, our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, but someone else has taken that over. So my main focus is these 4 sports for this year. The next thing I wanted to make sure everybody knew, and I'm going to stop sharing real quick, is where to find what rules. Especially our newer people. I get a lot of emails that are like, I've looked everywhere online and I cannot find the stunting rules, and you never will. So all of our FHSAA rules, and if you're an administrator on this call, or if you're friends with your athletic director, you may have seen this book right here. This is the red book that we send out to all of our athletic directors, principals, county administrators. It's also available online, and I'll show you how to find that online. But this is our policies and bylaws. So this is information that is specific to FHSAA. You're not going to find any stunting rules in here, because stunting rules don't apply to soccer. This stuff in this book applies to everybody. So it's more general in nature. It's more governing and administrative, and less, not at all sport specific. So in here, you're going to find information about GPAs, and that you can't practice on Sundays, and all of the things that your athletic director and your principal use to govern the sports at your school that we set are in this book. So this is also available online. So if you're looking for stunt rules in this book, you won't find them, because this is just our FHSA policies and bylaws. We have some cheer specific, what we call administrative procedures, and I will show you how to find those. Oops. I should have had my browser pulled up, but I didn't. So sorry, I have a hard time multitasking. Okay, so our sport-specific administrative procedures only exist online. And those can be found on our website. Can you guys see our website? Jeff, can you see that? Okay, so if you are on the main page of our FHSA website, you can go to member services and then click on rules and publications. And this is where you'll find all of the things that we publish. So that red handbook that I showed you is this first link right here. And this is all specific to FHSA. You will not find any stunting rules or safety rules specific to cheer on this page. This is all stuff that is specific to administering sports and events. General administrative procedures that would apply to running a state championship for all of our sports would be under this administrative procedure link. And then things that are specific to competitive cheer will be in the competitive cheer sport manual. This used to be called the coach's manual, but now it's the sport manual. So in here, if you have never looked at this, I highly recommend you take some time to look in this, because people have broken rules in here and then are shocked to learn that they broke a rule. For example, this is where all of our information on timing is, right here in letter C, point deductions for timing. This is where it tells you that your routine can only be 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. That's somewhere in here. And that only 1 minute and 30 seconds of your routine can be music. And then it spells out the time limit and the deductions for going over time in letter C right here. This also tells you right here, letter D, that you have to start with a body part on the floor. It used to just say 1 foot. So if your team starts out and your top girls are loaded into like a basket toss or loaded into a load position with both their feet off the floor, that's a rule violation and it's a 2-point deduction. We added a hand or both hands on the ground because one year a team started in handstands and that had never happened before. And that is a body part. So we added a foot or both hands need to start on the ground. And that is right there in letter D. This one happens every year, letter E, an organized entrance. And that is if your team comes out onto the floor and something happens, either somebody yells set or someone says 5, 6, 7, 8, and that calls all of your kids to attention and they set in their positions, that starts your time. Or if you do any kind of organized group chant, that's going to start your time. And a lot of coaches don't factor that in when they're timing their routine. So it's subjective in that it's kind of up to the judges what they deem an organized entrance. But again, they're looking for, and they can't hear necessarily what the kids are saying from the judges table. We know that we hear something and then everyone responds to that. And if someone says or does something and everyone responds and either sets or comes to attention, that's an organized entrance, an organized start, and that will start your time. So be careful. Your kids can spear it out onto the floor. They can high five each other. That is not an organized entrance. But if some cue is given and it calls your team to attention, that's going to start your time. So just be careful of that. Also in here, past gate list, we'll go over that later. The squad breakdown, the division breakdown is also in here. This hasn't changed. It's not going to change. I understand that varsity has changed their division structure. We do not, usually we always end up in line, but at this time we are not changing our divisions to mirror theirs. So they are different. You might need to be aware of that. Outlines what happens if your performance is interrupted, excuse me. This is new. We will not review your score sheets on site any longer. So those days of after the competition is over and you are upset about your scores and you come up and talk to the judges, we're the only state that does that, that allows that. And we're the only sport in the state that allows that to happen. So in an effort to fall in line with the other sports in Florida, once the competition is over, the judges will be leaving. And if you have a question about your scores, then you can contact me on Monday after the conclusion of the competition, no sooner than 24 hours after the competition. And also how you advance from regionals to states is in here, and also how you advance from semifinals to finals. So like I said, if you've never looked at this before, very interesting, and will probably answer a lot of your questions. So, okay.
Kelly, are we allowed to ask any questions yet? Or you said wait till the end?
Yeah, well, we've concluded that section. So yeah, if you have questions, that's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to know, like, if you're competing non-tumbling, does that mean no tumbling on the floor at all, or you're just not getting scored for any tumbling?
No tumbling on the floor at all.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so somebody asked if I could show you one more time how to find that manual. And I'm not as proficient with Zoom as I should be. There it is. Okay, so again, the manual, if you go to fhsaa.com, and that's what our home screen looks like, and then go to member services, and then rules and publications. And then all of our publications, including the coach's manual, are on that page.
Okay, and that even includes nothing as much as even the simple cartwheels, just none.
If you look in the very front, oh, I forgot to go over this book. So if you look in, everyone should have this book. So all of your technical rules, sport rules specific to cheerleading are going to be in this book. And this is the Nfhs Rules book. And you have a digital copy of this book available to you right now. If you do not, you need to get that immediately, and I will tell you why. Not only is it important for you to know the rules, and it does not matter how long you've been coaching. There have been a lot of coaches that have, heaven forbid somebody get hurt, and the parents find out you don't have a copy of the safety rules. It's a liability on your part. So every coach, no matter if they're a competitive coach or a sideline coach, has access to this book. And if you have not seen this book yet, yours comes in a digital format through the Nfhs Rules App. And it looks, I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like that. And it's hard to see because of the light in here. But you have access to the Nfhs Rules App. If you go to either Google Play or the App Store and you download the Nfhs Rules App, your athletic director has login credentials so that you don't have to pay for it. So if you just try to log on, it's $6. However, every school has been provided a credential to log in, a username and a password that your athletic director has had since August. And if you've not gotten a hold of that, you need to get with your athletic director tomorrow. It's also in Florida state statute. In order for us to get cheer passed as a recognized sport or a sanctioned sport in the state of Florida, we had to show the state legislature that we knew how to be safe. And so one of the things that they did was that they required in Florida state statute, it's 1006.18, you will see that it says all spirit programs must follow the adopted set of rules, which is this book. So not only is it obviously good for you to know the rules, it covers you in case of liability. God forbid someone gets hurt, then you can say we were following the rules and it was just an accident. But it's also Florida state statute that you have this book and are following the rules in this book. In this book, in Rule 1, there's a definition of tumbling. And the definition of tumbling is a skill that starts and ends. I should read it so I'm not guessing. It's a gymnastic skill that starts and ends on the floor, on the performance surface. So if you do a forward roll, that is, okay. So the definition of tumbling is a gymnastic skill that begin and end on the performing surface, including rolls, inverted extended skills, aerial twists, and flips. So any gymnastics movement, including a forward roll, a cartwheel, it doesn't matter how basic or rudimentary it is. Any gymnastic skill that starts and ends on the floor is how tumbling is defined. So that's how non-tumbling teams can use a back handspring as a transition into a stunt, because the skill doesn't end on the floor, it ends in the stunt. So if you're doing a pyramid and your kids, and you're in a non-tumbling division, and your top girl does a back handspring but doesn't land on the floor, she lands in a load position, she didn't end her skill on the floor, that's not tumbling. However, if they're transitioning in their dance and someone does a forward roll, that is tumbling, because it's a gymnastic skill that starts and ends on the floor. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And I will take a look at that rule book.
Yes, you get, so someone asked, where do you get the book? Again, you have to download the app from either Google Play or the App Store. It's called Nfhs Rules. When you go to log in, it will require you to pay for it. However, we have already paid for you to have that. Your athletic director has the username and password that you will use to log in without having to pay for it. So if you have not downloaded the app, you can do that right now. And to log on without paying for it, talk to your athletic director. They've been assigning these for years. Your athletic director should be pretty familiar with it. They were provided your username and password credential back in August. Okay, so I'm going to move on with our agenda, and we can come back to these questions later on if we still have them. Okay, so that's where to find all the rules. Several, I don't even know how many years ago, we were doing an in-person roundtable, and the subject of practicing with another team came up. And that's illegal. You guys can't do that. And that got me to thinking about other things that you may not know exist in terms of rules, because I certainly didn't know that they existed until I started working at the FHSAA, because they're in this red book. And unless you're an athletic director, you've probably never seen this red book. So just a couple that I wanted to point out to you, just because they're good to know, and they may save you some headaches down the road. The minimum participation requirement is policy 10, and that's on page 58 in the print and online version. Policy 10 is what says you have to have 4 competitions. That's the minimum participation requirement. So that's where that comes from. Policy 18 is the one that talks about spring cheer and what you can and can't do during spring cheer, which basically you can do whatever the football players do in terms of like having 8th graders at your practices. There are steps for that though, and your athletic director needs to help you with that. And they are familiar with that because they do it for football. The other thing that's in here that most people don't know about, this is also, policy 18 is also, it tells you cannot practice on a Sunday. It also is where it says you cannot practice with other teams. Somewhere. Trust me, it's in here. Policy 18. Policy 18 also says that you cannot do an exhibition. So if you go to a showcase where you just perform and get feedback, but you're not scored, you're not placed against other teams, you're just showing people what you can do, that's an exhibition, and that's a violation of policy 18. So either go to the online version or grab this book from your AD's office and maybe take a gander at that. I've had a couple of people ask me about off-season conditioning, which is a great question, because you are allowed to condition during the off-season, and that is policy 21. And all the things you are and are not allowed to do before the season starts is outlined in policy 21. You can basically you can do strength conditioning and What's the other one I'm looking for? Totally lost my words. It'll come to me. But you can do workouts over the summer. You cannot do skill specific. So you cannot do jump drills, motion drills, dance technique. You can't do any of that, but you can do cardio. That's the word I was looking for. Cardio and strength conditioning are acceptable. We do have a policy in here for sideline that applies to everyone if you do football or basketball, which most of you do. This is the only part of our book, and that's policy 33 that mentions sideline cheerleading. And this is where it says 33.2.1, cheerleaders must remain in their seats along the sidelines during indoor contests. I grew up in Massachusetts and Illinois. We cheered right on the basketball floor, but that's not allowed in Florida. So in Florida, even though it says in the NFHS book that you can kind of stand behind the basket off to the side, we created a rule that's more strict than that, which you have to abide by. So policy 33.2.1 is what says you have to sit in the stands during basketball games or volleyball games or any other indoor game you may cheer at. And then the last three, 40, 41, and 42, those are, so everyone on this call should have or will watch the 3 required videos: concussion, heat illness, and sudden cardiac arrest. And the reason that we have to do those is obviously for safety purposes, but those are actually in policy. 40, 41, and 42 is what states that you have to watch those videos. So you do have to do them annually. If you haven't done them, talk to your athletic director. You need to do them before the season starts. If you have a camp and it's on a Saturday and a Sunday, you need to reschedule the Sunday. If you are practicing on a Sunday, that is considered out of season. It's a policy violation. And I think the fine for practicing on a Sunday is like $250. So definitely recommend you reschedule that Sunday. For mandatory competitions, what specific things must we do to ensure it counts as a competition rather than exhibition? That's a great question. Make sure that it's scored. So you're actually receiving a score, not just feedback, and that you're placed first, second, third. So if you just go and you get score sheets where people are just evaluating your routine and giving you feedback, that's exhibition. If you are scored and you get a numerical score and a place, that is, you're competing against each other for placements. So have a score or a placement.
I have a question, Kelly.
Okay.
Sorry. On that, if a team is not FHSAA regular, like they have not joined the competition ring and they're just hosting a performance and invited everyone to come. There's no judges, there's no nothing. Can they do that? Or can we go as just a performance? There's no feedback at all. It's just a performance for parents.
I don't know.
They are not independent or anything as far as I know, but
They should not be
looking
competing.
to like join. So they don't have judges. It's just like, we want to bring cheer community together. So if we could just have the squads come and perform for parents, like that's the idea of it. But is that something we're allowed to do or no?
I would say no. That sounds like an exhibition to me. That has never come up before. So I can't say definitively, but my gut reaction would be no. Is the school, so if that school who is not a member of competitive cheer, they're not an FHSAA assigned team, are they performing? Because that's absolutely not allowed.
As far as I know, I mean, that
Okay.
would be their whole intention.
That would definitely not be allowed.
Okay.
Definitely not. So,
Okay.
Which leads me to another point that's not specifically on here, but this question does come up quite a bit. There is a huge difference between commitment and registration. So your athletic director periodically commits your schools to having certain sports. And they do that on home campus. They have a checklist and they go down the list like, yes, football is going to be in the state series, soccer, state series. And they can pick whether you're going to be in the state series, which would be regionals and states, whether you're independent, which I'll get to in a little bit, or whether there's no team. And they have to choose. They can't skip it. They can't omit it. They're given a list of 32 sports and they have to go through each sport and say yes or no. If they say no, that school is a member of our association. They are bound to follow all this stuff that's in the red book. So if they say we are not going to have a cheer team, there is no cheer team. And I'm only speaking competitive cheer, not sideline, only competitive. So if they say no team, no competitive cheer team, that school does not have a competitive cheer team. That school cannot have a competitive cheer team. Because if they do, then they're doing things out of season. They're doing things, they're not following all the rules that teams have to follow. You can commit to being independent, which means you will compete at regular season competitions, at UCA regionals. You can even go to UCA nationals. Independent teams follow every single rule that every other team in the state and every other team at your school has to follow. The only difference between a team that's assigned to a region and a team that's an independent is the independent teams do not participate in state series, regionals and states. It does not mean that independent teams get to do whatever they want and there are no rules to follow. That is the exact opposite. The whole purpose of creating that independent status was to give teams a chance to acclimate to whatever sport they were trying to acclimate to make sure that they can field a team, to make sure that they can have a schedule and fulfill a schedule. So it is not, we're independent so we can do whatever we want. That is absolutely not true. So independent teams and teams that are assigned to a roster are beholden to all of the same, a region, are beholden to all of the same rules that everyone else has to follow. Can you be independent and state series? No, those are exactly opposite of each other. So you are either independent or you are in state series. And again, the only difference is the teams that are committed to state series go to our regionals and states and all the other ones. The teams that are committed to independent just go to the other ones. So I don't know how else to explain that without like overly explaining it and potentially confusing people, but there's one difference between all of the teams you see listed in region 1, 2, 3, and 4 and independent. And that is that those teams that are independent, you will not see them on the regional schedule. And that is the only difference. So if you have,
and Kelly.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. Where do we sign up? I am a new coach here in the Orange County area for FHSAA. Where do we sign up for their 4 competitions and I'm assuming they don't include obviously states and the region competition. Where do we sign up? Are they just anywhere? Do we compete against local schools?
If you can hang on to that question, I'm actually going to run through the rest of this stuff. And I'm going to open that up to the veteran coaches on the call, because that's probably the one thing that new coaches have the hardest time with. And it's the one thing I have the least involvement in. So the short answer to your question is you sign up wherever you can find them, but they are difficult to find if you don't know where to look. So hold on to that. And as soon as we get down, I just want to go through a couple more things, show you how to access some of this stuff, and then we'll open it up to talk about scheduling.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Another question that I get a lot is, can you put me on your email list? And the answer to that is no. And I'm not trying to be a smarty pants or be rude. I don't have an email list. So I have a home campus report, and I'm going to pull something up here. I'm going to do it off screen so that I don't expose everyone's email address. I pull up a home campus report, and I'm going to show you exactly where that information comes from in home campus. Your athletic director has to assign you to your team page. So every school that has competitive cheer has a competitive cheer team page. And if you give me just a minute, again, I have a real hard time multitasking, so I'm going to, and I didn't really ask anyone's permission if I could use their thing, so I don't want you to see who I'm pulling up here. Okay, almost there. Okay. Okay, so when you log on to home campus, you see this, or you only see competitive cheerleading and whatever other teams you coach. If you click here, you'll see this is home campus. So the dates, I'll update those. Important information, I don't really have anything up there yet, but that's where the score sheets will go and other things. But if you click on this right here, and this is empty, if this is empty, I don't see your contact information on my report that I pull. So your athletic director has to hit this little button. A drop-down menu will show up with your name on it as long as you're in there as a user. And they assign you to this box, and that populates the member directory. And that's where my information comes from. So there are 200 and some odd competitive cheer school. I don't have a list. I just, whenever I have to email everybody, I go to home campus, I run a report, it gives me everyone's email address, I copy and paste it, and off I go. So there is no running list. So if you don't get my emails, or if you've gotten an email sent to you through your athletic director, but they say, I know you're in home campus, you have to be assigned to the team page. If you're in home campus as a user or a coach, that's great. But if you're not on that team page, I will never be able to access your information. So check with your athletic director. If your AD is having issues with that, obviously it's technology and weird things happen. So if your AD is having issues with that, if there are technical difficulties, have them contact our home campus administrator. We'll get it figured out. But that is where my contact information comes from. I don't have a list. So if you're not getting my emails, the first person you need to speak to is your athletic director and say, you need to assign me to my team page. And they know what it is. They do it every season. I mean, I have 170, 80 email addresses. So 100 and whatever athletic directors have already done it. And they've done it for all their fall sports. So it may just be a matter that they haven't updated their winter sports yet, and that's perfectly fine. But that is where that information comes from. So I showed you how to access the website and what's on there. Like I said, I meant to get somebody's permission to kind of view their home campus page, but I didn't. So I don't want to expose everyone's email addresses and all the stuff I have access to. But if you do not know how to navigate home campus, oh, Tanya said I can use hers. Okay, give me just 1 second. If you're not sure how to navigate home campus, talk to your athletic director. They use it every day, every single day. So they are familiar with how to get stuff on there. Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate you, but I don't know that you're on here.
Kelly, you can use mine. Oh, you can use mine.
Okay, this is Miramar. So, okay, so again, this is all I did was go to Teams. Yours is going to look slightly different. I'm logged in as their athletic director right now because Tanya is not on there. I just pulled up the athletic director. I was the first person I saw, but yours will look like this, except it will only list competitive cheer and any other sports that you happen to coach. So you have all these you should have all the same buttons. I don't know if you have a school director or not, or forums. You'll have, you should have a Teams button, and that's how I got to this page.
Ellie, you're not sharing your screen.
Oh man, that's so annoying. I was on a roll too. Okay. This page, this is the Teams page. So I logged onto home campus, clicked on Teams, it brought me to here. Since I'm logged in as the athletic director, it shows me everything that they have committed to. You will only see competitive cheerleading and any other sport you might happen to coach. So if you click on varsity, this is all stuff that I update, and I will update these because we have all of the locations except for one, region 1. So I'll update those. Region 2 is going to be at Bishop Moore. Region 3 is going to be at Plant City, and Region 4 will be at Coral Glades. Region 1, we're still working with that. We have a contract pending for dates, not a contract, but a facility use agreement. Until that's signed, I can't release the dates because they may change, but we are very close to releasing the dates for the state competition, which will be at UF. So once I update those, you'll be able to see that right here. You can check to see if your roster is in there. Your schedule can go in here. Your AD puts your schedule in. Again, this is where, oh, there she is. So this is where, if this was empty, I would not have Tanya's contact information. And important information, I haven't loaded anything in here yet because I've been doing swim stuff, but this is where you'll find things like the score sheets, the Nfhs rules change PowerPoint, all of that will go in the important information section. So again, all of this I got to from the Teams page, and yours will not have all of these on here. You'll just have competitive cheerleading. And if you click on VR, then that will bring you to all of this information.
Just a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
For schedules, are you talking about competition schedules?
Yes,
And our AD puts those in?
correct.
Okay, so if our AD is newer, how do we go about making sure, do we just stay on top of them?
Well, here's the thing. Your AD has already entered schedules for all of the fall sports. Your school is fined if this stuff isn't put in. So rest assured, they're going to put it in. So if you can obviously check with them, you can check that section of your home campus page. Can I get everyone to please make sure they're on mute? Thank you. So you can check that section of your home campus page, but it's, like I said, it's part of policy. They have to put it in. It's not something they're likely to forget, as long as you give them the dates, even if they're going to change. So, or even if you have to drop out of a competition, if you say, here are the 4 or 5 competitions I plan on attending, they can put those in. You can change it at any time, not a problem, but it has to be in there by a certain date. I think it's October something, 18th, might be the 18th. I know some ADs have already started working on it, but our home campus administrator, after the due date has passed, our home campus administrator will run a report of schools that are missing their schedules. The ADs will be notified. Not really something that you will have to worry about, because they'll be fined if they don't do it. And nobody wants to pay a fine for that. So yes, you can stay on top of them. You can check that section of your home campus page, or you can just trust them. Yes, you need to tell them potential dates by, I think it's the 18th. Let me double check that. Yes, or 25th. Competition schedules are due on home campus October 25th. And then your rosters are due in home campus by November 8th, which is the first day you can start competing. And that's something your athletic director will also do. They'll also input the roster into home campus. Okay, just a couple more things before we start talking about scheduling. Akka safety certification, which is not Akka anymore. Is this new? So Nicole, that depends on how your AD sets it up. So Nicole said she has been able to put in dates before. Some athletic directors do not allow their coaches that access, and some do. So if your athletic director has given you that particular permission, you can put a schedule. Some athletic directors like to control that themselves. So that would be something that you would need to ask your AD if they've given you that particular permission or not. Some coaches can put their own rosters in, some can't. That's really a school decision, whatever they want to allow you to do. Okay, so also in our, I think it's in that same Florida state statute, or it's in our policies, I'll have to find somewhere, is where it says that all head competitive cheer coaches have to be safety certified. And it used to be the Akka certification, but Akka and USA Cheer merged a few years ago. So it is now the cheer and dance safety certification. And I'm going to show you where to find that. Okay, I'll get to that question in just 1 second. So this particular requirement is not specific to the state competition. I check it before regionals because I'm not going to put a team on the floor that is not scheduled or the coach doesn't have their Akka certificate. But you should have this long before the season. Like, this isn't something that you only get right before the state competition. You should really have this in place before the season starts. So this course is good for 4 years. The certification is good for 4 years. If you go to nfhslearn.com and you click on courses, and you type in cheer, it's this first one that comes up. So this cheer and dance safety certification, formerly known as Akka, is what all head coaches are required to have. And yes, it is $85, but it is good for 4 years. And check with your athletic director, because most schools will pay for it since it is a required course, or they'll reimburse you for it. But you have to have this in place. You should have this in place before the season starts. But I won't put you on the regional schedule if you don't have this safety certification. It's, like I said, it's not a requirement just for states. It's a requirement for coaches in general. So if you've never taken this course before, do it before the season starts, and then you're good for the next 4 years. If you think that it's going to expire, go ahead and retake it and save yourself the trouble. So that is required. Everyone has to have that. I recommend not waiting until before the regional schedule comes out, because that will hold up the regional schedule. Is if I have a bunch of coaches that don't have their certificate, I obviously have a bunch of holes in the schedule, and I won't publish it. Just the head coach, not every coach. Someone had a question while they were looking on home campus. It said that October 18th is the first day for practice/tryouts. Does that mean you cannot do tryouts before this date? And yes, that is exactly what that means. You cannot have your tryouts before October 18th. If you do, that is considered out of season practice and subject to a $250 out of season fee or fine or whatever you want to call it. But that is exactly what that means. Nope, no practice, no tryouts until October 18th. Already went over independent status. Okay. For some reason, this blows people's minds. If you are competing in a game day competition, that is competitive cheer. Even though the content of your routine is sideline oriented. If you are on the sideline and you are supporting your football, basketball, volleyball, wrestling team, you are functioning as a sideline cheerleader. That is not a competitive environment, no matter what you're doing, be it a dance, a cheer, a stunt, it doesn't matter. If you are up against another team, another cheer team, so if Jeff's team and my team are going up against each other to see who's best, even if we're competing against or each other using a sideline chant, we are still competing. That is competitive cheer. So if you go to UCA game day, you are competing. So you would have to be listed on our website in the assignments as a competitive team, whether it be interregion or independent, doesn't matter. You have to be a committed competitive cheer team in order to do game day. So if you are in a supportive role, supporting your fellow athletes, sideline cheer, and we don't have anything to do with governing that. If it is your cheer team competing against another cheer team, doesn't matter what the content of the routine is. You are competing against each other. That is competitive. You need to be an assigned competitive team. Lots of people did not know that. And correct, no tryouts for the competitive team. We do not regulate sideline. So football, basketball, any of that, we don't. You can do that whenever your school lets you to. Lets you. Competitive team tryouts cannot happen before October 18th. Correct. All right. And I believe the last thing that I want to show you is our head-to-head guidelines. We developed these several years ago. Head-to-heads is where your team competes against one other team one-on-one. With you can do it in several different formats. So our advisory committee got together a few years ago and decided to come up with some guidelines to give people some structure to a head-to-head. So teams have to be placed first or second, otherwise it's exhibition. This will be posted on home campus, your head-to-head criteria, 2 teams judging. They have to be judged. The judges should be safety certified. If you can find someone to judge who's an experienced cheer coach or an all-star coach, someone that really knows cheerleading, but they don't have the Akka certification or the safety certification, as long as you are there and you have the safety certification, that's fine. Somebody in the room needs to know the safety rules to make sure that during the competition or during whatever section they're competing with, they're not breaking the safety rules. You can use the FHSAA score sheets that will be posted on home campus. You do not have to do your entire 2-minute and 30-second routine. You can do a portion of it. Contact the coach ahead of time. Find out what you want to do. If you want to do the whole routine, if you want to do a part of it, whatever you mutually agree upon is perfectly fine. And this head-to-head can go on your schedule as a regular season competition. So this has not been updated since 2019. So before I put this on home campus, I'll update this, but I'll let you read through that once it's been posted and up to date. But just so you know, there are guidelines. If you want to modify these and you and the other coach agree on the modification, that's fine. This was just to provide some structure to teams that weren't sure, had never done a head-to-head before, or both coaches were unsure of what exactly they needed to do in a head-to-head. So that'll be on home campus. All of this stuff will be posted by the first day of the season, which is October 18th. And the last thing that I want to go over before we talk about scheduling is pass gate lists and alternates. Somebody emailed me this. So in that the administrative procedures that I was showing you, it outlines how many people can go on your pass gate list. On your pass gate list, which is something that you will turn in once we get closer, once you declare a division. We'll do another one of these that's more specific to just like regionals and states and not so general. But once we get closer to competition, you'll declare a division and then you'll fill out a pass gate list. So let's say you've declared to be in the small division and that is up to 12 people. So you were allowed to bring the max number of people for your division plus 4, which is 16. And then either 6 or 8 additional people, coaches, team managers, tumbling coaches, whoever you want. That pass gate list is what's going to get you into the warm-up area. That is what it's used for, so that we know who is around all of these kids. And we didn't change that last year. So this has been standard procedure since I put the pass gate list in place several years ago. You get a specific number of wristbands. Whoever's on your pass gate list gets a wristband, whether they be alternates or cheerleaders on the floor. They'll get, if they're on that pass gate list, they will get wristbands, and then they will be able to go into warm-ups with you. I would recommend, unless your school administration requests or requires to be in warm-ups with you, don't take up a spot for them on the pass gate list. They have a state series card. So a lot people will put their ADs on the pass gate list to get them into the competition. They don't have to pay for it. They already have a way to do that. So if you're running out of space, check with your administrator and say, can you use your state series pass so I have another spot on my pass gate list? We use pass gate lists for every sport. So if you say pass gate list to your athletic director, they should know what you're talking about. It's not unique to cheer. But yeah, it's a means for us to control who has access to your children. And it's a safety measure. It also keeps the warm-up rooms, which are sometimes kind of tight, limited space, keeps them from filling up with, 30, 40 kids that just want to hang around with their friends. So that is the purpose of the pass gate list. We didn't change that last year. I think we left all the numbers and the structure in place for that. So it'll be exactly the same. Melody, that's a really long question. Can you unmute yourself and ask that? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move on to regular season.
I'm sorry. I had to switch off to the other screen. Okay, so yeah, that's a long question. Basically, I've been coaching for a while. Our school's really small, and our interest in cheer's even smaller, and it's kind of been waning, and we're trying to rebuild. Anyway, we've also switched ADs. So we have a new AD this year. And last year we were, what's the word? I typed it in. We were classified as competitive, independent.
Okay.
And I don't even know, I just, for my new AD, am getting this like independent. I don't even know, haven't been in that loop until just now. So we don't know where to get any competition information other than we've always competed with CCA and FCAPs. When we knew about a competition, we would try and do that. But I don't think CCA really fits, even though, they follow all the regulations and the safety rules and all, but I don't think they really fit in. So I'm just a little bit concerned about the competition schedule and getting that to my AD. I just kind of feel like I'm in the dark here.
And you are definitely not alone. So we have reached the portion where I'd actually like for the veteran coaches to kind of chime in. Unfortunately, I don't have anywhere to really post competitions. There's nowhere on our website for that information to go. We tried doing classified ads a couple years ago, and that was an epic failure. So it's really just word of mouth and who you know and who you can contact. We do have a couple of Facebook pages. There's a Central Florida one, and there's a Region 1 Facebook page that people will post their competitions on. So that's a really good resource. But if any of the veteran coaches have a better way or know how the best way to schedule, I'd really like for them to chime in, because I've been at it for 7 years. So I don't know how people do it.
At Zephyrhills High School, we follow a lot of our local cheer squads via Instagram, and that is how we've built our whole competitive season for the past 2-3 years. Is we just follow local schools within our region or within our area, and when they post about they're hosting a competition, we just drop a message to them and they send us the registration form.
Excellent. I never thought to follow them on Instagram.
Okay.
I'm a new new competitive cheer coach this year, and I've seen a lot of social media posts about compete, get all three comps done in one day. Is that something we should be looking at doing? Or are those not, we need to steer away from those?
So you can do that. It's not really, it's not going to benefit you, except that it will fulfill your 4 competition requirements. So those are like, kind of like round robin head to heads, if we're thinking of the same thing. And yeah, you can go to, like 16s could go to Jeff's school and schedule them like team A versus team B, and then team A versus team C, and team A versus team D. And you've knocked out 3 head-to-heads in one day. Can you do it? Yes, you absolutely can do it. Does it fulfill the requirement? Yes, absolutely it does. Are you going to get quality feedback to improve your routine for regionals? No, you're not.
Okay,
So-
because we struggle, our local schools here, that there's not many in the competition side here. So that's it. We're struggling to find the local competitions. Everything we would have to do, we'd have to go towards Tampa. So that's why I'm just questioning.
Where are you located, if you don't mind me
Fort
asking?
Myers, Florida.
Yeah, that's not a lot happening down there.
No, but we're gonna grow it. We're gonna grow.
Yeah,
Hi,
Facebook.
Kelly. I had I'm not a veteran by any means. I'm only in my 4th year, so maybe that is a veteran in this sport. I don't know. However, I would say when I started, I didn't know anything, and I went to the FHSAA website to see who was categorized as competitive and found what schools were closest to me, and I reached out to them. I found mentors that way. I found a lot of people to help me. And I'm not far from Pasco or Hillsborough County. So with all of that being said, like, I think reaching out directly and getting those emails are right there. So I could, you know what I mean? That's how I kind of started with that. And I will kind of add to what you said, those competitions that are get them all done on the same day. Like, we look forward to every single head to head because our whole intention is to improve in front of judges every, if it's every 30 days we're in front of someone, or every 2 weeks, we get that feedback. So by the time we make it to regionals and get that bid to state, that we can see the increase in our scores and know what more of what they're looking for to improve our mat time. So I would recommend splitting those up. And we utilize UCA. I know you guys are all in different areas, but like UCA is one of our head-to-heads. So even those private competitions, right, we can use those for our head-to-head number.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. I'm trying to look at the chat.
UCA is part of the head-to-head number of one of your 4 competitions.
Correct.
Right. So like in those private competitions, you can utilize those too. I don't know where those are for everybody, but we do utilize them as one of our head-to-heads.
Yeah, that would definitely count.
So this will be my 4th year. And my first year, I definitely made all those mistakes that you were saying about Sundays and things like that. And so we were classified as independent because, like, for us, we did not compete for many, many, many years until I came along. And so what I did is, sometimes it's a little intimidating to reach out to other schools, especially if they have a really strong program. But that's exactly what I did. I reached out to some of the other schools that were local, and I have some really great mentors. I ended up going on Central Florida High School Cheer Coaches Facebook page, and I use that as a resource for competitions. A lot of the high schools post a lot of their flyers. That's how they promote it. And I just kind of reach out to the other coaches and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or have you done that? Or how do you feel about this one? And that's kind of where I kind of stood with looking for competitions, being a new coach, and still kind of learning my ropes and not being afraid to really go out there and be like, hey, how do you do this? Or how do you deal with this situation? Or yeah.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, so basically just going maybe from the schedule that football has, just those schools, just reaching out to them and connecting on Instagram.
Somebody asked where they could find schools in Broward and Palm Beach County, and let me show you that. So on our cheer page, if you click on classifications, this is going to tell you, it doesn't give you the county, but it will give you all of the schools in a region. This is all region 1, and it gives you the city that they're in. Gives you 2. This will at least narrow down who's in your region. Can I get everyone to make sure they're on mute if they're not asking a question? We got some JV schools here, and then these are all the independent schools. And you feel free to include the independent schools as well if you have an independent school in your area. Again, they are the 4 contest minimum requirement is what makes you eligible for regionals. So if you're in the independent status, since you're classified as independent, since you're not competing at regionals, you don't necessarily have to compete at 4 competitions, but you have to have a schedule in order to compete or to be in the state series next year or during the next classification cycle. So that would be the best place to find the teams in your area is our classifications page.
And Kelly, as far as paying for some of the competitions, do we just tell the parents like how much the competition costs and get the funds that way? Or is it sponsored by the school? Like, how does that work?
That would be up to your school. Most people have the kids, that if it's $250 competition entry fee, they divide that up among the team and each kid pays a share. Some teams will do fundraising. I have not personally heard of any athletic departments that pay registration fees for their cheer teams, but you could talk to your athletic director. So it differs team to team.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's another question that I wanted to. So Jen Allen is the cheer coach at the Kings Academy. She said she cannot unmute herself, but if anyone wants to do a head-to-head in West Palm Beach, contact her.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you said that we're not allowed to practice with other teams, but we do like UCA cleanups and stuff like that. And we like to sometimes, invite other teams just because it's cheaper that way. Are we allowed to do with that? Because we utilize UCA, because that's what we compete pretty much. So.
Yeah, so I actually had a really long conversation about this particular topic with my supervisor. His name's Justin. So I tried when I came on board. I was a cheer coach for 10 years before I started with the FHSAA. So when I came on board and I kind of learned all of the things that I did wrong when I was coaching, I was like, well, some of that is the nature of cheer, and that's how we get things done. It's every sport has their own culture. And the culture of cheer is that we come together. We'll bring in skills coaches, essentially, which is what UCA does. And I tried to explain to him what like a stunt clinic is and how it's helpful and beneficial and all that stuff. And he said to me, if you have 4 teams in a gym, so let's say you invite 3 other teams, all you guys are sitting in your gym on a Saturday. Everyone's sitting on the floor watching the stunt group. They're demoing the stunt. They're talking through it. And then you break into your own teams. And the way he described it was, if I can walk past the gym and I can see 4 distinct teams separately practicing on their own, we wouldn't have a problem with that. This originated from a recruiting place. So the no practicing with other teams, the intent behind that is to limit recruiting. So if you're bringing in 50 baseball players from all different schools and they're all practicing together and they're doing like pitching drills and all that kind of stuff together, you could potentially have some coaches eyeballing other people's pitchers, and then they start to recruit them. So that's the intent behind it, is to not give that a space to happen. So he said, if each team is clearly and obviously on their own practicing even if they're in the same space, we would not have a problem with that. If everyone's in one big group like you are at summer camp and everyone's all over the mat practicing with everyone else, like you can't tell who's with what school, that we would want to limit, we would want to address that. So hopefully that makes sense. Before I forget, Jeff, I'm going to unmute you. And Jeff is going to be assisting with getting judges this year. So Jeffrey Graham.
Yes.
There you are.
I'm here. So if any of you coaches on here are hosting a competition, I know I have a list started already. I have had coaches actually reach out to me last year. They already had their date when they're going to do these mini competitions. If you are looking for judges, please email me. I can say my email now, or Kelly, I don't know how you want to get it out to them, but whatever's easier, I don't know.
I'm gonna stick it in this chat box right here.
Okay, so everyone can see it. Perfect. So that's my email. I'm setting up the judges for all the mini ones. So if you guys are looking for FHSAA judges and want somebody that's certified that has done many competitions, just shoot me an email and I will get you on my list.
You go ahead and read that out for me.
Oh, it's jgraham@pasco.k12.fl.us.
There it is. Okay. Sure. So if you need judges for your competition, contact Jeffrey. He'll be happy to help you out with that. All right, we're a little bit over 1 hour, but one other thing I wanted to touch base on that I can't remember if I mentioned it or not was minimum participation requirements. So, last year, all of the minimum participation requirements were lifted because of COVID, and people were having a hard time getting competitions, and competitions were canceled. So we did not have any minimum requirements last year. Everyone could come to regionals no matter how many competitions they participated in during the regular season. To my knowledge, that has not happened this year. However, our board of directors are the ones that make that determination. They're the only ones that can lift that policy. They did just vote to lift that policy for fall sports. And they said when they come together at their November meeting, they will evaluate sort of the status and how teams are doing. And they'll look at it again for winter sports in November. So as we stand today, we still have, everyone has to compete in 4 competitions. And it's actually before the state meet, because some people have a gap between their regional and their state competition. As of right now, that minimum requirement is still in place. It may be lifted. I won't know until November. We do not have a rubric. Are there rubrics or scales for score sheets? No, we do not have a rubric. We just have the score sheets.
I had a question.
Yes.
This is last year we were independent, but the other teams that we competed against, like, were different divisions. Like, we had some that were like small, non-tumbling, like everyone was like they're a different division. Is that okay? Like, does that still count?
Yes, absolutely. That would count.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Yeah. How do they determine, Hillsborough County, which competition you attend? Like, I know how they send us week 1, week 2, week 3, and then they put us in slots for schools. How do they just choose it, or they?
Jeff looks like he has some insight on that. That's a county specific thing, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely county. I've judged many of the Hillsborough ones. FHSAA has nothing to do with that. And that also, some schools use their old score sheet that they used to have, and some schools use the FHSAA score sheet. Last year kind of was different because of COVID and stuff. I think they're trying to merge the FHSAA score sheet, but really that has nothing to do with FHSAA. But you can use them as your mini comps. You can add those to your competition schedule, but that you'd have to go through your district.
No, I mean, for Hillsborough County, they give us already our 4 competitions that we have to do automatically.
Right.
Yeah, contact
We
Jen.
don't have a choice.
You would probably have to go through Jen Birchill.
Oh, okay. So that's how I could find that question. Okay, thank you.
He usually is the one that oversees that, I think.
Yes.
Somebody asked if I could show how to find that certification again. So if you go to nfhslearn.com, that will take you to this web, the Learning Center. Click on courses and type in cheer.
Hey, Kelly, I had a quick question.
Yes.
This year, are we going to be doing comparative scoring for regionals and states again?
Yes, ma'am. That
In
is
the
our
divisions.
standard operating procedures, comparative
Okay.
scoring. Yep.
Okay, perfect. And will the scores like the 60 still stand to get you through to semis and 70 raw send you through to finals again?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's all I got. Thank you.
You're welcome. And once we get a little bit closer to regionals, like maybe late October, early November, or I don't know, at some point after the season starts, we'll have another one of these that are specific to competition. Raw score. Amy, I'm not quite sure what you mean. It just says, say the raw score again. Oh, 60. I'm sorry. Raw score of 60 or higher will advance you to state semifinals. If you are first or second in your division and you have a raw score of 70 or higher, you advance directly to finals. That is all in writing in that coach's manual that I showed you earlier on our website.
Thank you.
Ma'am.
Hi, Kelly. I have a question if you don't mind. We're competing for the first time this year, and some people were telling us that we're on probation this year. So what does that mean? Are we still able to compete in regional and states or not for our first year?
Okay, so that's, what school are you with? And I can tell you, but I'm going to tell you why.
Gulf Breeze High School.
Gulf Breeze, I think. Okay, so you are assigned to Region 1, which means you will be participating in the state series. So that whole thing about probation and whatnot, that coincides with our classification cycles. So when I first started the FHSAA in 2014, it was every 4 years, and now it's every 2 years, but because of COVID, now it's every year. So to say that it changes is an understatement. Every year or 2 years, your athletic director will sit down and commit your school to, we're going to have these sports. Those are the commitments that they send to us. And we do those, like I said, typically every 2 years. This year, because of COVID, they're doing it this year. They did it this year. We'll do it again next year because it's all related to school population. Everyone's school population was a mess because of virtual school and in school and out of school. Like everyone's school population was so chaotic that we're going to do it. We'll reclassify again next year. Every time we reclassify is when your athletic director has the option to move you from independent into state series. So your athletic director in May, when they submitted classifications for this year, or excuse me, commitments for this year, moved you to state series. If you are currently in the independent status, in May, your athletic director can move to state series.
Okay. All right. So
after.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. So we are eligible to compete in the state series this year. Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that's how you move from independent to state series. Your athletic director has to tell us that is what you want to do when it's time to reclassify. So it just happens because of COVID that it's being done back-to-back years. Typically, everyone's classification or commitments were due back in May. Normally, we wouldn't do it for 2 years. So I think maybe that's what people would consider that probationary period. When you're classified as independent, you can't move out of independent until we reclassify. Typically, it's 2 years. It's just that this year it's going to come up again. So if you're currently sitting in independent and you want to participate in a region next year, your athletic director needs to submit that to our office in, I think it's late May that it'll be done.
I have a question, Kelly.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
So we read it, me and my other coach, we read it in the handbook, but I just wanted to verify, make sure. So our school is a K through 12 school, and our current high school building has 7th and 8th grade in the building. So for tryout, like when we do tryouts in October, those 7th and 8th graders can try out and compete at varsity level, no issues.
As long as your school allows it, yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
That also comes from state statute. Because Florida state statute for the purpose of high school athletics defines high school as grades 6 through 12. And then as long as we put in the requirement that you have to be on the same campus. So as long as you're a combined school on the same campus, K through 12 or 6 through 12, and your school allows it, some schools don't. Yes, your middle school age students can participate on varsity.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Somebody asked about masks. That is not our call. We don't have a mask protocol. Those are usually, last year, those were designated per school or per county ordinance. So it will, yes, be up to your discretion, or whatever facility or school you're going to, it would be their rule. We stayed out of those mandates last year.
Hey, Kelly, I know you said you're trying to wrap up the dates for states.
Yeah.
But I also know that I think that it's going to fall on regional weightlifting again.
Always does.
Always does. Is there any way to fix that? Because I know we have a lot of weightlifters that cheer too.
There is not, because this is what happens when you have an athlete that chooses to do 2 varsity sports in the same season. Our seasons are only so long, and our seasons are dictated by our board of directors. And we have to operate not only within the season that our board of directors outlines, but then we are at the mercy of our facilities. So our board of directors are the ones that tell us, this is when your regular season is, this is when districts, regions, and states. So they're the ones that approve our schedules. And they're the ones that tell us when we're going to have our postseason. And then within that designated time that's given to us by our board of directors, then we have to work with venues to come up with dates. So when our schedules are in the same season and our districts and regions are in the same windows, they're going to always fall on top of each other, unfortunately. So, and then we have the added component of this facility is only available on this date. So it's a tough call, and that's the gamble that you take when you have an athlete that does 2 varsity sports in the same season. Sometimes it works out, and then sometimes we have to, be creative and see what we can. But we can't change the dates of our competitions because they're mostly dictated by venue availability.
Yeah, thanks. I just told him I would bring it up because how that goes every year. It's a nightmare.
Kelly, I have a question, and this could not be for this meeting. And if so, please, I don't want to bring up something that's not supposed to be talked about here. I'm trying to wrap my head around the answer that I was given. Does competitive cheer numbers go towards gender equity numbers?
Yes.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
And has it always been that way?
To my knowledge, yes.
Interesting. Okay, I was told they didn't. It was the only sport that did not go towards gender equity numbers.
What happens is when it's submitted to wherever it's submitted to here in Florida, it's almost always rejected because they say it doesn't fit the criteria of a sport, but we have addressed and met all of those criteria. You have to appeal to the Office of Civil Liberties in Atlanta, I think. I have it written down in my office. If you want to email me, I can give you that. But if you have to appeal to a higher office, and then they will grant it. But yeah,
awesome.
Hillsborough County has been counting it for years.
Okay, I will definitely email you on that.
Someone asked, how do you go from independent to being in regionals? Your athletic director will submit that in the school's commitments in the spring. And this question I don't understand. It says, do I have a schedule that say when things are? On our website, there is a schedule. There's a calendar on our website, the competitive cheer page of the FHSA website that has dates. And then there's dates that are on that top portion of your team page in home campus. And those are the only schedules that I currently have.
My last question. For the safety certification, you said 4 years, correct? So when I pull mine up, it says inactive, but I did it in 2020. So we're good.
If you did in 2020, then you're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Kelly, didn't the USA cheer thing start, was it last year? Because I feel like that I had to redo mine last year and I wasn't under the, like my Akka hadn't expired yet. But I feel like when they did the merge, I had to redo it for some strange reason.
You shouldn't have. It's all the same people. It's just Jim Lord and Cowboy.
Okay.
And they just, I even think that they physically sit in the same office. And so it's all the same people. They just merged under one title.
Okay.
Jim Lord was the executive director of Akka, and Bill Ahern is the USA cheer guy. So, and they've worked together for years and years. So maybe something happened when they merged, but it should have been.
Okay. I'll check it. It's mine's still good right now.
So good.
And then you might have already answered this question. I've been like back and forth chasing kids during this, but did you talk about open gyms at all prior to tryouts?
No, but there is a policy for open gyms. Score sheets currently are in a Dropbox somewhere that no one can seem to access because the Dropbox is finicky. I will post the score sheet on home campus. Open gym is 21 or 22. Open 23. So policy 23 is open facilities program. But here's the thing you need to know about that and why I typically don't recommend it for competitive cheer, because all you can do is sit there and watch it happen. You cannot coach, you cannot instruct, you can't be out there with them. Like you can open the door, unroll a mat and let it happen. So for this, obviously you do whatever, your school wants you do and whatever you feel comfortable doing. I don't think that's the best for inexperienced athletes in cheerleading to be, trying to throw each other around. But yes, we do have an open facility policy. It's policy 23.
Okay. We just there's some girls that have moved to our school since our spring tryout. Usually only our sideline girls are interested in comp cheer, but they have asked, because, like some of our other sports have open gyms through the fall. So they had asked, they have cheer experience. They had asked if we would hold one so that they could like work with some of our girls prior to tryouts. But if I just sit there and they have their paperwork on file, then we can hold one. I just can't provide any instruction or feedback.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
It has to stop before. So open facility activities in a specific sport, competitive cheer, shall conclude a minimum of 2 weeks prior to the first permissible date. So you're running out of time. So it has to stop 2 weeks before October 18th, but you could do it like this week or next week.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
To find out if your school is enrolled as independent or in the state series, go to the competitive cheer page and click on classifications. And that will tell you where everybody is classified currently. So we're going on an hour and a half here. I'm happy to hang out and answer as many questions as you have. But if you need to log off,
Kelly.
Completely understand.
Kelly.
Yes.
This is Cassell. How are you?
I'm great, Cassell. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Have a quick question. I sent it to you in a chat. It's October, Reigns and Reebok getting ready to kick off Classic in regards to the Northwest Classic. And we do a lot of things for our alumni that come back between the two schools. And of course, we do have the actual We call it a showcase, the Northwest Cheer Showcase, where we we invite the community. We just don't stick to Reigns and Reebok. We invite everybody within the Northwest Quadrant. Sometimes we even send out invites beyond the Northwest Quadrant. How is that? I know it came up a while ago and you indicated when it happened, it was okay. But based on the new rules now, is that a go? Is that not a go? I mean, this Reigns and Reebok.
Yeah, no, send me your flyer, because it was the flyer that I was looking at with my
yes
supervisor. And I don't remember specifically what made it not a competition, but send me the flyer and I'll review it with him again.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm sorry. How do we get to the page where we see what we're classified under? I coach at Oasis High School, and it says we're Region 3, but it doesn't tell me are we independent or the other one.
If you're in Region 3, you're not independent.
Okay.
You would be listed under, if you keep scrolling down, there's an actual section that says independent.
Okay.
So if you're in Region 3, that means you are assigned to state series.
Okay, thank you.
Are we allowed to do a national showcase if it's after the season? No. No, you can compete at nationals if your athletic director requests a season extension, but then that would be the last competition, the last performance for your team. So you don't actually submit. Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, and I know you mentioned exhibition earlier, but I was thinking like a parent showcase for the girls to hey, we're going into competition season, please support us, and to show their routine. But from my understanding, that's not even allowed either, right?
No, you could do a pep rally for your school. That's
like that.
Yeah. Someone asked about head-to-head competitions. How do you submit score sheets? You don't. No, you don't submit score sheets for anything. When I coached, I just kept all my score sheets just for, I don't know why. But you don't submit scores anywhere. You just make sure that the head-to-head is on your home campus schedule. So someone asked how to find out if you're 1A, 2A. That does not happen until mid-December. So 1A, 2A is a product of your school enrollment and how many teams are in your division. So right now you are, no one's classified as 1A, 2A. After I know who's in what division, I list everyone in their division, and then I sort them from the schools with the highest enrollment to lowest enrollment and cut the list in half. So it's not super scientific, but it will change year to year depending on what division you're in, how many other teams are in your division. But I don't know that until after I know how many teams are in each division, which will be mid-November, or I'm sorry, mid-December. We don't have district competitions. So someone asked if we have to compete at district competitions to be eligible to compete at regionals. If your district has set up a competition, like Orange County, they have metros, and that's like a county competition, that can count as one of your 4 regular season competitions, but that's not considered an FHSAA state series event. So it would definitely count as one of your 4 required to go to regionals, but you don't have to compete at that if you don't want to, unless your county tells you have to. So someone asked if the independent rules are listed anywhere. Since there aren't separate rules for independent teams, they're just all the same policies and bylaws and procedures that everybody else has to follow. the minimum participation requirement. So it says in that red book that I showed you guys at the beginning, it says in there in policy 10, in order to be eligible for state series, you have to compete in a minimum number of contests. If you're in the independent, if you're classified as independent, you don't compete in the state series. So you wouldn't be beholden to that for competition minimum, but you do have to have a schedule. There is a tentative date for states, but I'm not going to say it out loud because it is subject to change. And as soon as I say it, people are going to start booking hotels. So as soon as we have signed confirmation, I will let you know when that is. So if you don't have, this is actually, the question came in, I'm afraid we don't have support to enter 4 competitions. Does this mean we'll have to drop out of FHSA altogether? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is sometimes it is always tough for some groups to find 4 competitions, especially if they're in an area like down in Lee County, where there's not a lot of other teams that compete, and sometimes they can't travel to, wherever, Orlando, wherever. We can work with a school. If a school has made every attempt to get 4 competitions and either things were canceled, they weren't allowed to travel, something came up, we will work with that school on an individual waiver if our board doesn't lift the minimum participation requirements in November anyway. So no, definitely do not drop out if you can't reach your 4 competitions. We will work with you. If I'm in region 2, is that state series? Yes, it is. I've probably missed a lot of questions in this chat, so I'm sorry if I missed you. Other people have asked to do about virtual competitions, and I don't have an answer for that yet. I know we haven't allowed them for any of the fall sports. I did not receive, last year I got guidelines from the NFHS for virtual competitions, and I have not received that this year. So as of right now, no. If that changes, I will let you know. Lord, I hope so. I'm not sure who EJ 1026 is, but my God, I hope so. The question was for regionals and states, we'll be back to normal with spectators. That will depend on the facility. I've already been in communication with UF, and to my knowledge, they are operating at full capacity and as normal. If that changes, obviously I'll let you guys know, but I don't know right now. I haven't even started talking to the schools about if they have any restrictions. So I don't have an answer for you now. I hope so. You will notice that some of the stuff we did last year is definitely going to stick around. Like, we are definitely announcing awards outside again, weather permitting. That's definitely a thing that's going to happen. So like some of the stuff that we implemented last year for COVID, you'll see that again. Do you automatically go to regionals? Yes, everyone who meets the minimum participation requirements goes to regionals. How do we know if we qualify for states? If you meet the minimum score at regionals, then it will be announced there that you've qualified for the state competition. The process for adding a competition team to your school right now, you can talk to your athletic director. They can complete an add drop form. Oh, sorry, should have read the whole question. For instance, if we've always had a varsity competition team, but if we wanted to add JV or game day, we do it by program. So like the whole program at Niceville High School is committed, and that's varsity and sub-varsity. So you can add sub-varsity teams in accordance with your school rules. You don't have to get special permission from us to add JV or game day or anything. You're welcome. All right, so I don't see anything else coming in. If I missed your question in the chat, feel free to unmute yourself and let me know. If you think of something after we disconnect here, by all means, email me and I will get you an answer. Cassell, make sure you send me your flyer and I will review that with Justin and get back to you on that.
I sure will.
FCD competitions for independent teams, yes, those are okay. As long as they're within the season. FCDA's schedule goes into like March or April. It doesn't matter if you're in a region or if you're independent, you cannot compete in May. You have to be done after the state series, unless you go to nationals and your athletic director requests a 1-week extension. As long as the FCDA competition falls in those in the time frame, yes, you can definitely compete with them. But it doesn't matter how you're classified, you cannot compete after the season is over. Will I email you this recording? No, but I will email you where you can find this recording.
Hi, Kelly. I have a question. It kind of goes back into not the question that you just answered, but the one before about, I guess you would say, divisions. Okay. Are you able to compete game day and traditional under the same school, or how does that work? So like if I had a small varsity traditional and then a small varsity or medium varsity game day, would that work? How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
If it's 2 separate teams, then it would be 1 competition for each. But if you took like your small varsity team and you went to UCA regionals and you did traditional and game day, that actually counts as 2 competitions.
Okay. So, but like for
it has to be the same.
it would have to be the same.
Oh, well, we don't offer game day.
Okay. Okay.
So
that makes sense. Okay.
For FHSA, you can only do 1, but we don't offer game day. You would just.
Right. Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
If you're going to UCA and you do both with the same team, that actually counts as 2 competitions for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, so Kelly.
Yes.
Just to clarify on that, just so I have clarification, our athletes can cross over or double team and do a game day and be on traditional. Like if we have a game day.
Okay. Yes. The only thing they cannot do is compete on your varsity and JV on the same day. So like if like your baseball team does a doubleheader, it'd be the same exact thing. Okay. So as long as it's the same, like you could not have individual athletes compete varsity traditional and then JV game day. They can't move levels in the same day. But yeah, I mean, your baseball team does a doubleheader on a Saturday. So as long as you count them on your schedule, you could definitely do a traditional with the same team, same level. You can do a traditional on a game day. Yep.
So if it's not exactly the same team though, if it's a varsity game day and a varsity traditional, but some of the athletes are different.
Yeah,
that's
as long
okay
as they're all on as long as they're all like, if you have a home campus roster of 40 kids, you could put like we're not out there checking off names on the roster to make sure it's the same exact kids. If you have a varsity roster in home campus and there's 35 kids on there, you can put 20 on one mat and 15 on the other.
Okay, thank you very much.
Divisions won't be due, divisions won't be due until the week after Thanksgiving. All right, I'm going to hang out for about 3 more minutes. But I can see we're losing people rapidly. So we are going to go ahead and wrap this up. I really appreciate you guys hanging with me. I know this went way over the 1 hour that I'm going to keep it to, but great questions. I hope that if you're on here or if you're watching the recording, you found this to be beneficial and helpful. I will send out the YouTube link to everybody. So whether you attended or you weren't able to, everyone will have the opportunity to look at this recording again. And if you think of anything after we disconnect here, by all means, email me and I will get you an answer to your question. So thank you, everybody. Have a great night, and I will talk to you all soon.